Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
So, today we will talk about directional statistics. So, we again have just introduction to that. We are not supposed to go in detail. So, okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, what are directional statistics? So, basically, there are many areas or many scientific fields where the measurements are in terms of angles or directions. Okay. For example, in biology, you may want to study the direction of movement for migratory birds. Okay, so many birds come from different countries to India in say winters over there. So direction of movements are more important than the actual distance. Okay, or if we are talking about say orthopedics and suppose you are recovering from a knee surgery, then the angle of your knee movement that may be of importance. Okay, so there are such fields where directions are important and magnitudes of the movements along those directions are not that important. Okay, so in such fields we use directional statistics. What is directional statistics? So basically, so if I am in 2D, then a direction can be represented as a vector, correct? Direction can be represented as a vector with suitable origin. For example, normally in while drawing a map, we say this is our east, then this is our north, this is west, and this is south. So basically, we can say, okay, if I start from here as say 0 degree, then I can say that along 0 degree I have east direction. And if I go in our usual manner, anti-clockwise manner, then I can say along 90 degrees I have north, along 180 degrees I have west, and along 270 degrees I have south direction, correct? So in this way, a direction can be represented via angle, and if magnitude is not important, then I can place all these points on a unit circle. So we can simply have all these on a unit circle. Unit circle means circle where radius is 1. Okay, so this is 1. So here I can put those points, whatever points I am interested in as per their angle. So this in 2D, this is called as circular statistics. Okay, if the direction is in 2D, we will call it as circular statistics. Why circular statistics? Because we could study them by putting them on a unit circle. Is it okay? Is anyone listening?
Yes, ma'am.
If I go to now 3D, so if I have to represent a direction in 3D, then let me try to draw the coordinate axis. Suppose these are the axes. Then the direction cannot be represented by a single angle. You will have to worry about two angles. Okay. So let me call those angles say alpha 1, alpha 2. Then with the help of those two angles, you can represent a direction. And then it could be represented as a point on the surface of a unit sphere. So here I was saying point on the what do you call circumference, not circumference actually, boundary. Point on the boundary of a unit circle. Here we are talking about a unit circle, and now point on the surface of a unit sphere. Okay. So in 3D it will become spherical statistics. In 2D such a study would be called as study of directional statistics. In 3D it would be called as spherical statistics. And in general, if I don't want to specify the dimension, we call it directional statistics. Why? Because we are mainly studying directions, okay, along different dimensions. Now, this is a pretty recent development in statistics, and it has been used in many areas. One example I can give you is, you know, India has two types of monsoons. Am I right? We studied long back in school days. India has two types of monsoons. Does anyone remember? Nairutyaya and Ishanya. Okay. So basically, correct. So you have regular monsoon that comes in normally between June to September, and then you have returning monsoon which is not present in all the areas. So returning monsoon is generally more in the southern and eastern part of the country. So for example, Maharashtra doesn't get much rain in the returning monsoon, whereas Chennai gets lot of rain from the returning monsoon. So what some biologists did was they identified some species of trees which are present in two different areas. One of the areas was receiving rainfall through regular monsoon, other area was receiving rainfall through the returning monsoon. Then they identify same species of trees on at both the places, and they wanted to see if the different, I mean, the duration, the arrival of rainfall is at different times, so does it cause any difference in the growth of those trees, etc. So the major thing that is dependent on rainfall is seed dispersal. Why? Because see, normally when farmers plant new seeds, so that depends on the arrival of rainfall. So just before the arrival of rainfall, we would like to plant new trees so that the rainfall can help those trees grow. So same thing is found in the natural world also. So the trees generally disperse their seeds as per the rainfall pattern. So just before the rainfall, seeds are dispersed at much faster rate so that there is a chance of good population growth. So these botanists actually studied same species occurring at these two different places, where the two different places were receiving rainfall in two different seasons, and they observed that yes, the seed dispersal pattern had actually changed to accommodate for the differences in the rainfall. So here they could see the more seed dispersal in late May or early June, whereas here they could see the more seed dispersal around late September or early October. Okay, even though the species were exactly the same. Okay, and for proving that there is a significant difference between the mode of this group and mode of this group, they used circular statistics. Okay, so circular statistics, as I said, has gained a lot of popularity in recent years, and people are trying to develop new methods for it. Whatever methods we have in usual statistics, people are trying to find their counterparts for the circular statistics. For example, t-test or ANOVA or regression. So all these things have now been translated to circular statistics. Okay. So as I said, this is a very huge area of study, but we are going to have just an introduction. And if you feel interested, you can maybe study this later in as part of your project, or maybe just as an extra study. Okay. Now, one question arises: why do we need a special kind of methods? Why don't use simply normal methods? Because we are saying that okay, I'll have a unit circle, and then the points would be represented by angles on that circle. So why not simply treat those points, I mean those angles, as univariate observations and go ahead with usual studies? Why to develop a special field? Now there are some issues with that. So first is, numerical representations of directions is not unique. What do I mean by that? Okay, so suppose this is my, okay, assume these three angles are equal. Okay, assume these three angles are equal. So this is A, B, C. So what would be your reading for A now in terms of angle?
degree.
Correct. A mathematician or a statistician would say that A is actually at 30 degree. But people from other fields, for example, people from say geography or geology, they generally consider this as 0 direction and they measure clockwise. So for them, A would actually be 60 degrees. Okay. So depending on the field you are in, your value is going to change. Ideally, both the parties are talking about the same point, but the values are different. So this causes problems, especially if you use your usual methods. Okay. So let me show you one example of a problem. Okay, so let me take 4 points. So suppose I have, this is origin, this is 0. So in, let me take 50 degree, this is suppose 50 degree. Okay, then suppose I have here 160 degree. Okay, then suppose I have here 210 degrees and I have here suppose 300 degrees. Okay, now if I take mean of all these, what would be the mean? 160 plus 50 plus 210 plus 300 by 4. I am taking simple mean. What would be the mean? I think 180 degrees. Am I right? This will be 420 plus 300. So
Yes,
180 degrees. So 180 degrees means my mean direction is now this. Correct? This is my mean point. Okay. Now let me give measurements in terms of, if I start with 0 here and if I go clockwise, then this is actually 40 degrees. Correct? If I start with 0 and go clockwise, this is 40 degrees. Then this is how much? 90 plus 60. So this is 150 degrees. Then this is so 180 here plus 60. So 240 degrees. And this is 270 plus 20. So 290 degrees. Correct? In the second measurement system, these would be the readings. And now what is the mean? 290 plus 40 plus 150 plus 240 divided by 4. So how much is this? So I think this is again 180 degrees. Am I right? 190. I think this is again 720. So 180 degrees. And now what is 180 degree in the current system? In the current system, 180 degrees here, because I am starting with this as 0 and I am going clockwise. So earlier I was saying this is mean, whereas now I am saying this is mean. So my answer has completely changed and this is not good. Okay. So just because the representation is unique, representation is not unique, you shouldn't get different answers by each system. Every system should give you same answer, whereas your usual mean fails to do that. Okay, so sample mean cannot capture that. Okay, so representation not being unique is a problem because usual descriptive statistics cannot handle it then. Another important point is, because the representation is not unique, there is no ordering. Okay, there is no ordering and hence all the rank based methods are out because you can't order the observations. So you don't know whether you go from this direction or whether you go from this direction. Depending on that, the order would change and hence rank based methods cannot be used because they all need ordering. Okay. And the third important characteristic of circular data which is not present in the usual data is beginning coincides with the end. So when we have 360 degree, basically 360 degree is same as 0 degrees. So there is a kind of cyclic nature in the data. Okay, so if you start from here and you end up here, and then when you are here, so you don't know whether this is 390 or 30. So technically for you 30 and 390 are same. Okay, so this cyclic nature of the data needs to be captured, which cannot be done via usual methods. Hence, because of these reasons, we need to develop special methods for handling circular data. In fact, our usual descriptive statistics, if we try to apply to circular data, sometimes they can also produce ridiculous results. So uniqueness is one issue. They did not produce unique results. That's what we saw. But sometimes they can also produce some ridiculous results. For example, suppose I have recorded directions of flying for two birds. So for bird 1, so this is suppose 15 degrees, and for bird 2 this is 345 degrees. Okay, now what is the mean? If I consider usual sample mean, it will be 15 plus 345 by 2, so it will be 180 degree. So my mean direction would become this, which is actually a ridiculous thing because my original directions are here. So ideally, intuitively, we expect mean to be somewhere here, correct? We expect mean to be actually mean of the two directions, whereas we are getting exactly opposite direction. Hence, usual summary statistics cannot handle circular data. Okay, they can give sometimes ridiculous result, and of course non-uniqueness is another issue. Because of all these reasons, we need to develop separate methods for handling directional or circular data. Okay, so today we are going to see sample mean and sample variance for circular data, and we won't go beyond that. We will just see how to compute sample mean and how to compute sample variance for circular data. So you have this circle. Now any point on this circle I can represent, we saw via angle. So suppose this is 0, let me take this as 0 for the time being, and this is say alpha degree. Then we know in polar coordinates we can represent it as r cos alpha and r sin alpha. Do you remember? You used to have polar coordinates in coordinate geometry, maybe in BSc. Have you heard the word polar coordinates?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What about others?
Yes, ma'am. You only.
Okay. So r cos alpha, r sin alpha, and here we are taking unit circle. So r is 1. So basically every point we can represent as cos alpha, sin alpha. Okay. Cos of that angle and sin of that angle. Okay, for three-dimensional it would be slightly complicated. For three-dimensional we will have two angles. So I will have cos alpha 1, then sin alpha 1 cos alpha 2, and sin alpha 1 sin alpha 2. But we won't go into three dimension. We would restrict ourselves to 2D for the time being. Okay. So what we are saying is now any point we will represent by cos and sin of that point angle. Okay, so suppose let alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha n be the circular observations given in terms of angles. Alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha n be the circular observations recorded in terms of their angles. Okay, so ith circular observation is cos alpha I, sin alpha I. Then we first define a resultant vector something like a resultant vector. How do we define that? Resultant vector V is defined as sum over cos alpha I going from 1 to n, sum over sin alpha I going from 1 to n. Okay, this is a resultant vector. And let me call this as big capital C and capital S, so which is a resultant angle. And then we define magnitude of this resultant vector. Norm of V would be under square root of c square plus s square, correct? This is how we define norm of a vector. Then direction of the resultant vector, alpha naught bar, if I call it alpha naught bar, is given by cos alpha naught bar would be c upon r, correct? Because this is now cos of that new vector. Okay, so it is such that cos alpha naught bar is c upon r and sin alpha naught bar is s upon r. Are you getting what I am doing? I have computed a resultant vector, and because we know that the first coordinate is supposed to be cos of that angle and second coordinate is supposed to be sin of the angle. So the angle of the resultant vector alpha naught bar is such that cos alpha naught bar is c by r and sin alpha naught bar is s by r. Okay. So from this we can actually compute alpha naught bar. So alpha naught bar is sample mean. Okay, so sample mean alpha naught bar of alpha 1 alpha 2 alpha n would be tan inverse of s by c if s and c both are positive. It is pi by 2 if c is 0 and s is positive. It is tan inverse of s upon c plus pi if c is negative. It is tan inverse of s upon c plus 2 pi if c is positive but s is negative, and if both are 0 then we will say it is undefined. So whatever conditions I am putting, these are simply because you know you have properties of sine, cos, tan, so simply because of them these conditions are coming. There is no great tricks involved. So this is how we define sample mean of n circular observations alpha 1 alpha 2 alpha n. So what is s and c? So s is summation of individual sine alpha i's. Where is it? Yeah, here. S is summation of individual sine alpha i's and c is summation of individual cos alpha i's. Okay, this is how we define sample mean. Now what is the advantage of defining this sample mean and not using the usual sample mean? So this alpha naught bar is rotationally equivalent. What do I mean by rotationally equivalent? That if you change your system of recording the observations, we saw that there is no uniqueness. You can record clockwise, anti-clockwise. Your origin could be along 0 direction or along any other direction, etc. So if you change your recording system, your alpha naught bar would obviously change in value, but the direction remains exactly the same. So whatever I told in the earlier example, let me go back, that sort of issue does not arise. See, so here we saw that in one direction, in one measurement system, we are getting this as the mean, whereas in other measurement system, we are getting exactly, not this. Yeah, we are getting this as the mean, the purple one, correct? So just by changing the measurement system, we were getting two different answers, which should not happen. So this alpha naught bar takes care of that. So this alpha naught bar is rotationally equivalent. That is, if alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha n have mean direction alpha naught bar, then alpha 1 plus c, alpha 2 plus c up to alpha n plus c have mean direction alpha naught bar plus c. So the shift is exactly parallel and exactly same, so we will get the same direction even if we change the measurement system. Okay, hence this sample mean is useful here, unlike the usual sample mean. Okay, so this is how circular sample mean is defined. Now of course we define mean, we would like to define dispersion or some sort of variance also. For that we need to first define the concept of distance, because for dispersion we need a concept of distance. Suppose now concept of distance is also kind of tricky. Suppose I have 2 points here, say A and B. Now should I take this angle as the distance or should I take this bigger angle as a distance, because automatically there are two angles. Okay, so this is tricky, hence distance is generally defined as smallest of the two angles. Okay, so whether if you go from here to here in this direction, then you get one distance. If you go from this direction, you get another distance. So we generally define distance between, say, let me call the angles as alpha and beta. So distance between alpha and beta, so the angles are actually alpha and beta. So this is alpha, this is beta. So this is defined as minimum of alpha minus beta and sorry, the bigger angle is beta, so I'll have to do beta minus alpha. Minimum of beta minus alpha and 2 pi minus beta minus alpha. Okay, so whichever is the smaller angle, we take that as the distance. Okay, so what would be the largest possible value of distance? Smallest possible value is obviously 0 if two vectors are coinciding. What is the largest possible value?
180.
180 degree, correct, because we are taking minimum of the two angles, so it will always be an acute angle. So distance will always belong to 0 to 180 degrees, so you can write as 0 to pi if we write in radians. This is one way of measuring distance, but there is another way of measuring distance also. So you can define d2 alpha beta as 1 minus cos of beta minus alpha. Okay, and actually we know that cos of x is same as cos of minus x, so it doesn't matter, I could write alpha minus beta also. So 1 minus cos of beta minus alpha. So here what is the range? If alpha is equal to beta, then I will have 1 minus cos of 0. Cos 0 is 1, so I will get distance to be 0, which I need because otherwise it won't be a proper distance function. But what would be the maximum possible distance? If then, sorry?
Maximum possible distance can be 1.
1. Why?
Because cos ranges from -1 to 1.
So when cos is -1, what would be the value of the distance?
2.
So maximum possible distance is 2 actually. Okay, because if you have 180 degree, then cos 180 is -1. So you'll have 1 minus -1 here. So 1 plus 1. Okay, so d2 alpha beta belongs to 0 to 2. And this distance function, this second distance function is used to define variance. I mean something like variance. Okay, so the dispersion measure. So let me write. Because usual variance will have same issues like usual mean, uniqueness and all. So we define a dispersion measure. Let u1, u2, un be sample observations, of course they are all unit vectors, and let W, which is AB, let this be an arbitrary unit vector. Let theta I be angle between UI and W, and it is the smaller angle, so theta I is in 0 to pi. Then distance of WUI we know will be 1 minus cos theta I, okay, by the second method. And we now define dispersion around W. So dispersion of the given sample from W is, it is denoted as dW U1 U2 Un, and this would be sum over all the individual distances UIW, I going from 1 to n, so this will be sum over 1 minus cos of theta I going from 1 to n, so this is n minus summation cos theta I. Okay, in general dispersion from any vector would be defined as this, and we can show that if we take W to be the mean vector that we defined earlier, the normalized resultant vector, so if W is taken as the normalized resultant vector, then this dispersion is minimized. If W is taken as a normalized resultant vector, that is circular mean that we defined earlier, then the dispersion is minimized. So this property is exactly equivalent to what we have in linear. The standard deviation is minimum when it is taken around the sample mean. Okay, so dW star U is minimum, and actually the value is n minus r, where r is under root c square plus s square, do you remember? And W star, the resultant vector, is c by r, s by r. Okay, so the dispersion is minimized, and that minimum value turns out to be n minus r, where r is the magnitude of the resultant vector. Okay, so this is how we define sample variance in the circular case. Any doubt so far? Okay then, let me stop here for today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.